This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock, joined by John Brummett, columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Early Merry Christmas to you, John Brummett.
Merry Christmas and/or Happy Holidays and/or season's greetings. All of those are acceptable to me to receive or to say.
All right. Well, I think Donald Trump and Mike Huckabee would disagree with you on that. So.
They do seem to disagree, according to a Christmas special on Newsmax that I do not recommend.
I'm just impressed that you have Newsmax now. This is an impressive addition to your arsenal of cable channels.
Well, yeah, well, it's all. I've got this whole streaming set up, and so I had to get this app. And when I turn on the television, I get these icons for all my apps, and Newsmax is right there, and it just gives me an identity crisis. However, I've now watched that show, and that's the only reason I downloaded it, so I can get rid of it. Yeah, there you go. So,
all right, let me know when you subscribe to OANN. Okay, that's when I'm going to know that there's something really wrong with you.
That'll be end times sort of things.
All right, let's begin
with
a conversation on national politics. We have seen quite a bit of friction in the U.S. Senate between the White House and Democratic West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. Do the Democrats have a Manchin problem, or does Manchin have a Democratic problem?
Each of them has a problem with the other, and that's just the way it is. But it's more basic than that. And I hate to say I told you so, but I think it was a column or two after the election, and I said Biden won this presidency because his name was not Trump. If he had a policy mandate for anything bold, he would then the House would the Democrats would not have lost several seats in the House. And then the Democrats got to 50-50 on a fluke, frankly, in the U.S. Senate because Georgia had a special Senate election to go with the regular one, and Georgia has these weird runoffs going into January, and Georgia had these Atlanta suburbs which turned on Trump. And then during the period between the general election and the Senate runoffs, Trump was fomenting an insurrection, which further complicated Republicans' problems. And lightning struck, and the Democrats got to 50-50. That's no mandate for $2-3 trillion of your full philosophical wish list. It never was. And I just looked up a quote, Otto von Bismarck: "Politics is the art of the possible, the art of taking the next best step." And they didn't do the possible. They pursued the impossible because everybody knew Manchin is far different from Bernie Sanders. So that's what happened. I fought. Look, Democrats, liberals are saying Joe Manchin's corrupt, he's corporate owned and all that. Well, okay. But the art of the possible, if you think that, and I don't happen to agree with it, then work within that parameter. You only got 50. Find out what you can pass. So that's not what they did. I blame Joe Biden. Joe Biden needs to lead his party, not tell them work it out, not let them run things. And he should have started from the center. He should have started incrementally. He should have put 2 or 3 popular things in this budget reconciliation. They would have passed them by now. They would say, look what we've done in a year. COVID stimulus, a bipartisan infrastructure bill that Trump never got passed, and we've done child care tax credits, or we've done Medicare dental, or we've done something else. 2 or 3 that they could have agreed on, and that would be the discussion. Bernie and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez would be mad, and Joe could be saying, be mad at me, but I got you something. This way, they're at risk still of getting absolutely nothing. Forgive me for going off on that, but that's just, I feel strongly.
Follow-up question on that. So let's just say that the Democrats had followed the scenario that you just laid out there. Don't you think they would still be suffering just from a PR perspective on their prospects for the midterm elections? Historically, those are always dangerous for.
Well, historically, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't interrupt. Go ahead.
And they, quite frankly, I think that they lose the messaging war on a near daily basis when you look at the amount of volume of of spin that comes from the Republicans versus the Democrats?
I think modern history tells us if you do much of anything, even with some poll popularity, if you do a lot of activism with a new president of your party, that president's party is going to get some pushback in the midterms, which will be participated in inordinately by againers, meaning the other party. And I just think that's, I mean, I'm resigned. I mean, we're going to have Republican control of the House and Senate. I think your question is, wasn't that likely to be the case anyway? Very possibly. And aren't they losing the messaging no matter what they do? I don't think that was necessarily so. I mean, I hate to keep quoting myself, but if from the beginning they had accepted, let's do these three things. I remember Mac McCarty, when he was chief of staff, telling me we're getting the first few months of Clinton's presidency, we're just getting destroyed by mixed messaging. We need 1, 2, 3 priorities, and we need to hammer them every day. They eventually started doing that and recovered their presidency. So I think by now, if they had passed 3 popular things in budget reconciliation, they could say, look what we have done. Now, and they could say the left is mad. Okay, the left got something, they didn't get it. And I think they would be they'd have a fighting chance in the midterms. Right now, you got Democrats quitting, popular Democrats who partly because of redistricting. Oh, now the Democrats are going to try to do the Voting Rights Act, which needs to be done, but they don't have the votes. They don't have the votes to undo the filibuster. Manchin and Sinema are no on that. So, losing the messaging, losing the tactics, losing on strategy, losing on the 2 things I said. Joe Biden, please be boring and be competent. Those are the 2 things I said. He's turned out to be neither so far.
All right, let's translate that national messaging back to Arkansas, where Democrats are already in the super minority. Republicans are, there does not look like there's going to be any major shift in Arkansas's electoral politics in terms of a Democratic comeback in 2022. But that mixed messaging that you're talking about, that lack of messaging, that lack of strategy and focus, does that keep the Democrats in Arkansas set back even further from some sort of comeback?
Yeah, that plus redistricting. The National Democratic Party, particularly one that led now by Biden, who made his bed with the left for his initiative, has written off Arkansas. I think they just factor in Arkansas has gone wholesale to Republican, which is a national strategy, which I think is wrong, but at least it's a national strategy. But it does no favors to any solid, good, left-leaning person in Arkansas who is just abandoned by any sort of national leadership. The problem, I've got a column tomorrow, and I believe I say this, the extraordinary and soon to grow Republican majorities of the Arkansas legislature are not so much the result of the Republicans, but it is great fear and alienation in most of rural Arkansas of liberalism on the national level. I believe that's what it is. It's not, I love Trent Garner and I love Jimmy Hickey and I love whoever. It's man, I ain't voting for anything with a D by it over these issues that frighten me. That's simply been made considerably worse by this spectacle that we're observing now. So yeah, life is now harder, impossible for the Democrats in terms of gaining anything. They're going to be a Little Rock, Fayetteville party and a few Delta seats, and it's going to be about 20 House seats and 5 or 6 Senate seats. That's it, seems to me.
All right. Last question for you. We've seen some Republican poll has floated out there in the lieutenant governor's race that shows Attorney General Leslie Rutledge with a big lead in that lieutenant governor's race that she's pivoted to over the other candidates that have been running for several months in that race. Do you think that, number one, do you believe those numbers? And number two, do you think that some candidates in that lieutenant governor's race start to think about switching to something else or maybe not running?
Well, it was, I believe the numbers. I can't call the numbers right now. I forget.
It was 52 for Leslie Rutledge, and there was single digits for pretty much everybody else.
She was where?
52.
Okay, without a runoff. No, that's not unexpected. I mean, I think Sarah's a lay down hand, Leslie's a lay down hand. Those things are done. This is good Republicans know to give their consolation prize to Rutledge because she's been forced out by Sarah. They know Leslie did her best to serve Trump and will continue to do so. I think some people think Jason Rapert made his last big push by trying to exploit the abortion issue in the session and was not permitted, which I think had a lot to do with legislative support for Leslie Rutledge. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not surprised by these numbers. I think she most likely wins without a runoff. And I think there will be one or two withdrawals from that race.
All right. You heard it here first. John Brummett.
No, it's not first. I've heard that for weeks from several people, as have you. Don't give me credit for being first on that. All right.
I appreciate your time, my friend.
Roby, happy season to you. Have a good Christmas, and I'll see you next time. Okay.
Happy New Year. All right.